Hello everyone, and welcome back to another historical sewing video. I hope you guys enjoyed some of the scenes from nature around here, and I hope it brought a little bit of calmness to your day. In this video, I'll be showing you how I worked on the top for my 1892 outfit. If you guys have seen some of the other videos that I've been making, you'll know that I'm working off of a McCall's pattern that was actually created by Angela Clayton, and I've already completed the skirt, and now I'm on to making the top. I always enjoy seeing historical references for the pieces that I'm attempting to make, and I was pretty sure that maybe top or blouse wasn't the right terminology for the item that I'm actually going to be sewing this week. So I actually went back to my fashion plate that I used for inspiration for making this, which is an 1890s plate from Peterson's magazine. And I saw that they had a bit of a pleated or ruffled top underneath the blue jacket with a collar on it. And that seemed really close to the top that was a part of the pattern that I got from McCall's. I then went back and I looked at other fashion plates or other fashion drawings from different magazines of the 1890s. And I actually saw quite a few examples of women wearing this ruffled, gathered, pleated, whatever you want to call it, collar together with a top, which is very, very similar to the one that I'm planning on making. They had a few different names. So one of them was called like a plastron or plastron. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Another one is a chemisette or chemisette. Again, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. Please let me know what the pronunciation is if you do. And sometimes it was just called a collar. And it's a little difficult for me to understand what the difference is between all of them. From what I could tell from the limited research that I did is that a plastron or plastron was basically a collar together with like almost a V shaped piece in order to kind of fill the space in the bodice between the two lapels. A collar was sometimes just a collar, sometimes it was a collar and also had a front piece, and then a chemisette or chemisette had both a collar, a front piece, and it was sometimes also tied around the back, so kind of tied around your waist. That's what I understood. If you have any more references or idea of what the difference is between all of them, please feel free to give me a comment. You guys have been so helpful in the past. I always really enjoy having all the help from everyone and all the feedback and insights. So I believe what I'll be making this time is most close to like almost a chemisette or chemisette. And then I looked through the fashion magazines in order to find more examples of plastrons and chemisettes or chemisettes. And I found really great examples. So like I said, some that look very similar to the one that I'll be making that has the gathering or pleating at the neck and the front part of it, but also much more complicated and interesting ones. And it actually talked about how with the same overall outfit, so your same jacket and skirt, you can wear different plastrons or chemisettes underneath it to create a different look. One with more lace, one with more gathers, one with more ruffles, in order to kind of change up your dress without really having to change a lot of fabric or put a lot of time or investment into making a piece like this or buying a piece like this. So I thought that was really fascinating. I'm really excited to make this piece, so let's get started. As you might have seen in my last video, I had already cut out all the pattern pieces I needed in order to make the top. So I began by making my mock-up by first pinning all of the pattern pieces that I had and I needed to my muslin fabric and then cutting them out. After I finished cutting out all the pieces that I needed for the top, I then sewed them and stitched them together. I always think that making a mock-up is a great time to practice all the sewing techniques that I need in order to make the final piece, especially since I'm a beginning sewer. One of the biggest parts of this pattern to really create a nice effect is doing a lot of gathers. So making this mock-up also allowed me to kind of see how much gathering and where I wanted the gathers placed to make the final look that I was going for. So here you can see my finished mock-up, which actually fits pretty well for a first mock-up. You can definitely see that I need some extra width in the back pieces because the back panels don't actually meet currently. So I need to add some width there. I decided to only add extra width to the back pieces because I thought that the shoulders and front actually sat quite well on this mock-up. It also looked like from this mock-up that the length was perfect. However, you'll see in the final piece that I didn't account for a certain fold over in the bottom strap in my mock-up, so it did end up being a bit short. As I was pretty happy and confident with the minimal changes, or at least what I thought was minimal changes needed to the mock-up, I decided to move straight on to making my finished piece. This is made with a light white cotton lining and then the ivory silk over top. Similarly to the mock-up, I also pinned all the pattern pieces to both the lining and the silk top pieces and marked out all of the markings and cut out all the pieces that were needed. For the silk, because it's quite slippery and prone to slipping out of shape, I actually pinned quite a bit of it to the cotton lining pieces before cutting it out. When it was time to sew the silk to the lining, I made sure to pin 2 rows of pins where I would be sewing in order to keep the shape of the silk in the right position when I actually had to remove the pins as I was sewing on that line. So here you can see that even though I removed the 1 pin, I still have the 2nd pin keeping the silk in place. Any seams that I sewed, I made sure to press very carefully. If anyone has any hints on how to press seams that are curved like this any easier than I did, please let me know because I struggled quite a bit. Maybe a tailoring ham could help. And of course, gathering the top and bottom edges of the blouse really gave it that nice gathered effect. The bottom band of the blouse that sits tightly to the waist has some interfacing between the cotton and the silk in order to give it a little bit more structure. I think I was a little bit more successful in ironing the fusible interfacing to the silk this time than I was with my skirt, but it still could use some improvement. When I was creating the ties for the silk at the neck, this is just purely made from silk and I had quite some problems with the very sheer silk slipping, so I actually pinned it to newspaper to give it some structure to sew through. I know it's typically recommended to do this on tissue paper, but I didn't have any on hand, so I used a newspaper. This did leave some pieces behind when I ripped it apart, but I think overall it was a pretty good solution in order to be able to sew those silk ties. After making sure that the new top with the added length fit, I then sewed the collar with the silk ties onto the top of the piece and finished it off with some hand sewing, which wasn't my best work, but you know, it's done. And here is my completed piece. I am actually very happy with how this turned out, even though it is not quite long enough. I do think that the overall effect of this blouse, top, chemisette, whatever you want to call it, turned out very well and is really starting to give my overall outfit that 1890s silhouette that I was hoping for. I wanted to thank you all again so much for watching the video this week. If you enjoyed it, feel free to give it a like. If you want to see more historical sewing and historical knitting, you can feel free to subscribe. I'll be working on my jacket to sew that next, as well as some hand knitted items and accessories to go with it afterwards. Thank you again so much for watching, and I really can't wait to show you all more pieces as I finish them, as I come close to actually completing this whole outfit from the inside layer all the way out. I'll see you all next time.